guys, by the third, getting into the fourth day, they were dragging butt so bad. They had headachy. You know, I mean, when you start going without food, how many of you fasted for
Detox.
3 or 4 days? Yeah.
Detox.
Yeah, about the third day you go into ketosis, which is characterized by a lot of times you'll have a real crappy taste in your mouth. You get mood swings, you get highs and lows. You know, your body is starting to change over from realizing it's not getting anything to your stomach, so it's going to roll over into using stored fats, and it doesn't run real good. Oh, anyway, that from that aspect, it's still very much worth pursuing, and a lot of it's more of a lifestyle. People want to just be able to go out and leave more of their gear at home. That's kind of what captured me into it. I was a backpacker, and we were carrying 50 pounds of gear and slogging, you know, killing ourselves, getting to the campsite, throwing the pack down, and maybe doing a few day hikes, and then, you know, resting up till we could make the hike back. And I just got to get tiresome. So when we started coming across this stuff, we started leaving more and more stuff at home. You know, and eventually started doing like knife and blanket trips, and you know, where we'd just go for 3 or 4 days and not take any food, or take take maybe a day's worth of food, and then the rest of it was just what we got. And got hungry a whole lot, but at that point I hadn't even really got much into the trapping, and so we were just more foraging and crawdads and bugs and whatever. And but it's you know, you have to shrink your stomach down, because we're so used to eating so much empty calories to get what we need, because the food that we eat literally is absolutely empty compared to what this stuff is. So you can eat a small handful of greens, insects, whatever, and get more you can get more protein in a small handful of cricket grasshoppers than in an 8 or 10 ounce steak. A steak per weight is, I think, what is it, 14% protein. Insects per weight are 60 to 75% protein.
Wow.
So, I mean, right there it tells you, and it's same with the calories. You know, that's one of the hardest things to get whenever you're doing a subsistence thing is calories. I've talked to these people that do these year-long outings, 6-month-long outings, where they live on, you know, they'll take a group out and do that. Lynx Vilden, if you ever come across her website, she does that kind of stuff. And I've talked to her at length about what I just said, what is your kind of main, once you get settled in, you got your tools all done, they said fat is your main goal every single day, to find fat. And it just seems reverse of what we're in our culture now. But you know, like they're saying, the rabbit starvation, you can die of malnutrition with a full belly rabbit meat unless you eat the skin, the organ meats, the bone marrow, everything except literally the bones and maybe the intestine. And so anyway, that's, you know, the whole subsistence thing is getting everything you need. But, you know, with our industrial food, there's just so little of nutrition and vitamin, and I talked a little bit about that, about the dandelions and all the health benefits and that kind of stuff. So it is really important to incorporate this stuff into your diet. You don't have to go out and do a whole salad of totally collected wild edibles. You can go out and just pick a few dandelion leaves and throw them into your salad each night, or the dock, or whatever you've got growing. You know, go out and look in your garden. There's probably more good stuff that you're pulling out of your garden, and it's way better than the stuff that you're pulling it out to be able to grow. Like
purslane.
Purslane. That's one I was getting
I
ready.
pulled that stuff out of my garden, thought it was the most noxious weed for years. I realized it's one of the most valuable vegetables you can have in your garden.
I had no idea what it was.
Where do you get this stuff to plant this kind of stuff, like curly dock and lamb's quarter?
Oh God, you don't have to plant it. You scratch up a garden and it'll come in. You know.
And I've never noticed curly dock in my yard.
We didn't see lamb quarter yesterday, did we?
Yeah. No, it's you find it more in like old garden plots and old feedlots and stuff like that. They're all disturbed ground invasive. If you scratch up some ground, they usually find their way in there and will grow. In an old field, like an old cow pasture or something like that, or like I said, an old barn lot around the barn, that kind of stuff. Amaranth is another one. They call it pigweed.
Yeah, I got lots of that.
But that one, that was a serious cereal grain for the Aztecs. Those little fuzzy heads that come up on that pigweed, you twist and shake those things, these tiny, tiny little seeds come out, and that was their main. In fact, you can buy amaranth crackers now. You know, I mean, it's a big thing for especially for the gluten-free crowd. But anyway, back to the survival thing of it, the biggest thing probably is the shelter, because if you end up getting lost, you know, you dump your canoe and it gets away from you, you're stuck out there. The biggest thing is to make it through the night, because you know, if it rains and it's 45 degrees, you get a big stiff wind, your clothing is wet, you don't have a shelter, you can die so easily from hypothermia in pretty mild weather. And just lick your hand and blow on it. Feel like cool down? That's called evaporative cooling. So your clothes are wet, you get a nice little breeze. It doesn't even have to be, you know, it could probably even be up into the higher 40s that you can lose it to hypothermia because of that evaporative cooling if you don't do something about it. And so that being able to find or create a shelter, or even using your own clothing. And this is a scenario that can happen so easy. If you're out walking in the winter, you know, you're a couple of miles away from anything, it's really cold, it's 40, you know, 30 degrees, 40 degrees, whatever, you slip and fall in the river, you got a big stiff wind coming up and it's 30, 40 degrees out, you get out of that water, and you know, even though if you knew how to make a bow drill fire as good as anybody could ever do it, by the time you get out of that water, I guarantee your hands are going to be not working enough that if you had to go and make a fire kit, you could not do it. You're going to die before you make go out and collect the stuff and make a bow drill fire. Probably you're going to lose your hand strength. You're going to, you know, and it's literally minutes before you're, you know. Shelter is the thing that's going to get you through the night to be able to worry about food or water or whatever you got to worry about the next day. Because, you know, like I said, it doesn't take much weather to get you in that zone to where you ain't going to make it through the night. And when we get up and start walking around, I've got a couple of shelters. I got a Wickiup shelter over here and a debris hut shelter over here. That debris hut, there are versions of that you can make in less than an hour. You know, like 40. I've made little ones that I could hunker under in 20, 30 minutes. So they don't have to be full length that you can lay down and sleep in. It can just be something that you can make a little framework, dump the forest debris on, leaf litter, a bunch of that, you know, all these tall weedy stem things, whatever you've got, and just keep piling it on there until you get about a 3-foot thick layer over the top of it. And sometimes you can do it with deadfall trees. Sometimes you'll find trees that have fallen down and the branches will make a perfect framework. You'll have to clean a few out to make your little cubby hole to stay in, but the branches as they come down off the side of it will do a beginning of the framework. You can just start laying other sticks across there that will hold the debris, and you just start stacking stuff on it. And I have probably stayed 3 to 4 months worth of nights in that thing in every kind of weather you can imagine. And one night I got cold, and I fixed it, and the next night I wasn't cold. But like I said, it's in such bad disrepair right now. I wouldn't mess with it. I would just pull it down and use the usable sticks and rebuild it. But you can see kind of what starts to just get long, straight sticks. It helps to find a couple with a fork at the top. Yeah, so you can, and how to start the whole thing is you get a couple, you know, like a straight one and a forked one, or even if you can find 3 with forks at the top, that's all the better. Just interlock those forks and put them out however wide you need them, and just stand them up, and then have another one ready to drop them into that fork. So they all, that's called setting a tripod. It's exactly the same way if you're pitching a teepee. You have to set 3. You tie 3 of the poles. You lay 2 down and tie the other one at an angle across it, and you walk them up. And then that third one, you walk it around to set the tripod, and you're just making a tripod. And it's the exact same thing with this. So they're laying down, and you can just pick both of them up at once, and then spread the one out, and then have your other one up here, scooch it up to where you can get it and lay it into that same fork, and that's setting the tripod. And from there, it's just laying in other sticks to fill in the space. Take a long, straight piece like this, pick it up, and you can see where I use the forks on the branches to set the tripod on this one. and just whatever it takes. Sometimes you can find a fork in a tree to set that in. Sometimes you can maybe lift it up on a stump. You can find a little rock ledge to lay it up on. Whatever it takes to get the elevation. And where you've got enough room that you can stretch out in the thing, then just start loading it down with sticks on either side like a pup tent, and make a framework all the way down to the end. And then again, I've always put a few smaller horizontal pieces to make a lattice work. And at that point, you just start gathering forest debris. And this is a really effective place to be able to gather lots of it, because you can get up, and it's especially if you've got a tarp, a blanket, anything that you can pile up stuff on. When
You're like
doing
me and carry an extra large hefty trash bag in your kit.
Yeah.
It's great for making these shelters. You take an extra large hefty trash bag, you know, it's only rolled up, doesn't amount to nothing.
Yeah.
And you go up to wherever there's a big pile of leaves or a bluff, stuff that trash bag completely full.
Yeah, those trash bags are a really good little item to keep in your just basic bug out survival kit, whatever. They're for any number of uses. Emergency body shelter for that. I mean, just carrying water. There's so many things you can do with that little piece right there. But I did it with tarps, and I just take the tarp up there, and I'd get up there on that hillside and move the litter with my feet and my hands and scrape an area about this wide, and just as I walk down the hill, just pile it up into big piles and then scooch it all onto that tarp. You can fill up a tarp and nothing flat. And it takes a lot of debris to get this, because it's, again, it needs to be where you can poke your arm down almost to your shoulder through that leaf litter to touch the frame. It needs to be a good 2.5 feet thick. Thicker the better.